2-3 years. Thank you. Disembodied voice. So just like a short introduction about me. I got my art degree. I got my bachelor's degree from Davidson in biology and studio art. I got my master's degree at UNC Charlotte for urban design. But because of those degrees combined, I've been able to do a lot of really beautiful projects and work with a lot of beautiful brands and organizations, such as like Converse, the Panthers, Urban Outfitters, Champion, Sierra Nevada. And I currently work for Charlotte is Creative, as I take all of these skill sets that I have, all of these beautiful opportunities that I have, and share them, plus connect creatives with one another. So I love what I do. And one of the things I get to do beautifully is host events. So previous events, I obviously, the Makers and Creators Mixer started in April of 2022. And that was just an idea that I had after visiting and attending other events before for creatives, which I wanted to be a little bit more intentional in the aspect of networking and connecting. Blackness Is, which was a community cleanup and pop-up art event that was under a fellowship that I earned in 2020. In 2020. And that had a bunch of things with it. Food, there was airbrushing, there was live art. We obviously had a cleanup, and several different community painting events. So we're just going to run right into it, right? So my first thing that I would always tell people is like, what is your why? Like, what is the reason that you're hosting this event? What's its purpose? And what is your motivation and intention behind it? I think it can be very simple. It could be something as like, I want to throw a party. Great. That's just fine, but make sure everyone else knows that so they don't think that they're showing up to something other than what it is, you know? It also, like, having goals and expectations as part of your why are going to help you realize what is and then what could be. I think sometimes as creatives, we get really excited about something and to the point where we go so expanded on the idea that it's like no longer actually possible. So we want to kind of tailor it back, set our expectations correctly, and ensure that we actually have the time, the energy, and the budget to make sure something is going to happen. So hence my two little bubbles, where it's like, we want to do something that we're very motivated by. Sorry, this is really distracting, this thing. So I'm just going to stare there. So we want to focus on our motivations. So like, is it something that truly calls to us? Like, is it something that we actually care about, that we actually want to do? I think we all know what happens when we're not excited about something, and then it kind of tailors off. It can be sloppy. And also sometimes it's not purely intended and it's not authentic to ourselves. So we want to take that into consideration before we even consider throwing an event. But then we also, again, want to think about our expectations and realize that there is a limitation sometimes to our expertise and our experience. And sometimes you should start smaller to then lead to the bigger thing. And it's totally okay to start off smaller. I think we all need to recognize and remember we all have to start somewhere. And so after you think about that, right, we want to do our research and ask ourselves, other people, trusted friends, does this event already exist, or some version of it? What makes your event different? How are you, the facilitator, the organizer, making it unique, tailored to you and tailored to other people? And then, are there already people doing something like this? And is it better to just partner with them, or to get sponsored or work in partnership with them to then host this event? Sometimes it's way easier to do it together than to do it alone. So before you're like, this is a great idea and I'm going to share it with the world, it is a great idea. But also remember, we have ideas that get shared a lot. And so maybe share it with a couple of people that might already be doing it. And okay, so from there, I also want to think we, since I'm talking in a collective, we also want to think about what others are going to get from the event, and then what you want to get from the event. That can be, I want you guys to like write this down too, because I think about this a lot, or at least make this little T-chart, because sometimes what we want other people to get from the event is like not even in our thought process, nor the things that we want to get from the event. Like, what kind of experience are you trying to get? What kind of connections are you trying to get from hosting an event? for other people? What do you want their experience to be? What are some of the goals or maybe some of the outcomes that you want from your event? For the majority of this conversation, I'm going to be talking about the Makers and Creators Mixer. So for me, this looks like that. Makers and creators, I want other people to connect to a bigger network. I want them to experience networking and communication with other people, especially ones that they don't know. And then what do I want to get? I want to get experience as a host. And then I also want to get connections to sponsors and funders, because duh, how else are we going to do this? Please stop me, because I will ramble, I will run, and I will go. So if you have questions, please raise your hand. I should have said that way earlier, but yes. Okay, back into it. So building the event. So like you've got your idea, right? Community paint day, creative mixer, live series, concert, whatever, right? So what happens now? Well, we have to make a description. Oh dear, that is terribly laid out. Oh well. Okay, well, oh well. So you've got a couple things. So for our event description, it's going to be the thing that helps you clear your thoughts and decide on what the actual scope of the event is. And then it's also going to kind of create parameters for yourself so that you don't get too up here with the idea, and we can stay a little bit more confined, a little bit more direct in what the event is supposed to be. So I've got 3 things that your description should have. The top one says, oh dear. There we go. So we have a one-liner. That's the first one. So that's like your elevator pitch. That's like a sentence that's just like what the event is. And it's a sentence, right? That's also going to be the thing that like you can just share to people directly. So for example, if you're in an elevator and you're like talking to somebody that could be a potential sponsor, partner, or someone who's just interested in learning about the event, one-liner, and you can rattle it off, right? Your who and your what are also going to be in your description. That's who's your target audience and what are people doing at your event. That's 2 sentences maximum, and then be specific, because you don't want to add in some like frilly language, and you also don't want it to be super long so that it's like it takes up too much of the page, if that makes sense. And then we also kind of want to describe impact, but that's not going to be until after you've hosted your first event. Impact's not going to come until you've got some numbers behind you, some experience, photographs, blah, 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 evidence, if you will. So what can an event description look like? Here's my example for the Makers and Creators Mixer, copy and pasted straight from my one-pager. So I've got my one-liner. The Makers and Creators Mixer is a 3-hour traveling mixer that turns bars and breweries into networking opportunity for Charlotte creatives. Done, right? And then I've kind of got my who and what. Creatives of all mediums are prompted to discuss and network with each other, and funders and supporters from across the city. And then the loose programming surrounding what the mixer encompasses. I can share this with Sethu so that like all this, like you guys can see this slideshow. And also if you want to see the description or like one-pager templates, let me know. And then an example for if you're looking to do like, once you've got an impact, here's like an example of that. So starting April 2022, free range, 150 creatives attended, and to stay, and then they also shared their information to stay connected and grow. So then we've got the next several events listed with the amount of creatives that were there. But then finally, I've got how many people it's reached through social media, newsletter invites, and website visits. You can track that through social media. So like your insights, use that number and inflate it. Okay. If you've got 1,500 followers, say 2,000 people saw my post. Okay. It's because at some point, whether people like it or not, they're going to have seen it, right? And then that's not even including shares. That's not including comments, people secretly sending it to other people in the DMs. Like, it's been seen, okay? So inflate the number, just so you know. So these are all the things I think about. And when I say all the things, these are all the things I think about before I host an event, or like what I want to do with the event. So I'm thinking about budget. Who's paying for this stuff? Because I know it's not me, you know, and I know it's not y'all. Well, I would hope not. Venue, what space do I need? What are the requirements? What does the space have? Partners, who can you work with, and who's helping you do this thing? Like, do you need assistance, volunteers, whatever? Sponsors, are they able to support you with money, donations, in kind, products, even sometimes like tables, chairs, food, like that kind of stuff. What are the elements of your event? What can people expect? What is the experience? Do you have a dress code? Do people like, what do you think people are going to want? Or what are you trying to add to the event to make it worthwhile? Supplies, what do you need to execute those things? And then how do people know that you're throwing this thing? I will break each of those down. Any questions before I get into it?
Makayla, you have a question in your chat.
Okay. Is there a flyer for what is there?
Sorry, I might have said that wrong. I was
No, you're
asking,
fine.
is this information that you were just going over for a flyer? Is this for just for you to know? Not this last one, but and all of that.
Oh yeah. So for like, so for the description, that's what you're gonna want for your flyer, or like for when you're making a caption on social media, that's the stuff that you're gonna want to like kind of zero in on. It's also going to be really helpful for when you're getting into sponsors, partners, and then marketing. That's the thing those are the things that are going to help you the most. But we will also talk about flyers a little bit. Cool. Okay. So I think about it in a flow chart. So I think of the budget first, because if it's not being paid for or people aren't getting paid, like if I can't pay for the DJ, the event's not happening. You know what I'm saying? So like that's number one. I have number one.
That's true. That's true.
I'm screaming.
Hey, Makayla, you might be able to go in there and mute all participants if you have to, but I think we're good now.
I have no idea how to do that, so I'm just gonna let it ride.
Okay.
Cool. So I have venue and supplies connected, because if you don't know what the venue has, then you don't know what supplies you need, and kind of vice versa. Like you don't know the supplies without the venue, and you don't know the venue without the supplies. Same thing with partners and marketing. You can't really market anything without knowing your partners, because you have to tag them, mention them, add their logos, blah, 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 blah. But I think of it in this like tier system. Yeah, I feel, yes, cool. Next slide. So this is an event timeline. I know that like my thing is blocking it, but this title slide is called event timeline. So I'm breaking this down again as if I'm planning a makers and creators, which I am. This is the day of the mixer, October 13th, right? So today is the 14th of September. We are basically a month out, which is awesome. So I have this box as today, like this is today. So I've had this venue lined up for months. So like I'm ahead of schedule, which is great. When it comes time to supplies, I also am planning this stuff like per week, if that makes sense. So I've already got my description. I already know my purpose. I already know I've already pitched it. I've got my sponsors. So this is kind of me thinking about how I'm now moving forward in the process of showcasing it. So I have a prepping meeting next week. And so that's where we're going to talk about more finalizing supplies, what I need to go get, or things that the venue needs to know for me. I'm going to send out that the next day. I'm going to send an email with all of my marketing materials to the venue. And then I'm also going to start inviting people, like very specifically personal invites. So then next Friday is when the first post will go out with the description, with the venue, with the time, all those details. And that's also when I'm going to expect the venue to post about it too. The following week, it'll focus on stories, but I also want to do at least one post a week to make sure that people are aware that the event is happening, right? So moving into October, the week before the event, an email blast will go out describing, again, my event description, all of the details about it, thanking my partners, and then letting people know that they can invite other folks, post again the week of, and then I have that like usually with Monday or Tuesday of the event, I am having one more meeting with the venue to say, are we good? Is there anything else we need? Is there tables, chairs, food? Are we good? And then do one last post on the day before and probably one post the day of, and then we're there. So the only reason I bring that up is because I just feel like sometimes we don't give ourselves enough time to plan events. And so when we're even thinking about hosting an event, we have to think about how this is even going to happen before, like timing wise, how this is even going to happen before we go any further into our planning process. I also wanted to talk about like the criteria of your event. How do you decide what elements you're adding and like what are the things you might want to think about? So, and that also helps you decide your budget and who would be a great partner to work with or what sponsors to reach out to. Because obviously if like there's, for example, if there's no beer at the event, I'm not reaching out to Sierra Nevada. You know what I'm saying? So, duh. So I think from the perspective of an attendee, what makes certain events very memorable or things that are like events that I really enjoy going to. So I love a great cocktail, a great bar, great like good drinks, music or live music, DJ. I love opportunities to chat, mix and mingle, some kind of visual thing. So whether that's visual art, lighting, displays, blah, 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 just like something else for me to look at. We love snacks and we also love an option for food. And then just a great location, a great vibe. So those are the things that I know that I want. So those are the things that I'm going to then go search for or make sure are part of my event as I'm considering my budget, my partners, my sponsors. Make sense? Cool. Again, if I'm rambling, stop me. I also want us to consider like our non-negotiables. Like what are the things like if this isn't at my event, it's not my event. For me, that's the mixing and mingling part. And then the aspect of like curated food or cocktails. Like I love me a connection between those two. And it's like, if it's not there, I'm not there. And that's kind of the point of the event. You know what I'm saying? As a host, you're the reason why the event is happening. So inject yourself into it and its planning process. All right, so budgets. I like to think of those in like three ways. There's the monetary budget, the energy budget, and then the time budget. Monetary is obviously like that's the financial investment. Be realistic and make sure you have like this section of it that's like a contingency, like you're just in case. And that's usually 10 to 15% of your entire budget. 15% can be really high, but like 10% could also be kind of low. It just depends on what you're doing and what you're working on. And sometimes you don't even have to worry about the budget. Like I've worked with community painting events where they just ask me what I need and I say food, water, snacks, and paint. And they say, great. And then it's there the day of, you know what I'm saying? So again, it depends. I'm talking as if you're planning this event from scratch, which leads me into the energy budget. How much energy will this take out of you to actually plan and to host and to do all of the things that it takes to then get to the day of your event? It can be really taxing talking to people and networking and talking about yourself and connecting with people. So be aware of that and know that like I don't have a lot of energy right now. Probably not a good time to plan an event nor host one. And then also same thing with your time. You have to schedule these meetings, be willing to schedule time with sponsors, partners, blah, 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 blah. Do you have the time realistically to plan something? And be honest, again, like be honest with yourself. I feel like sometimes we love to not be honest with ourselves and we just go straight forward and then it can actually be pretty detrimental to us, you know? So moving into the shmoney money, also obviously going off of budgets, how is this thing getting paid for? Well, I have three ways that I think about it. One of them is brand alignment. That's for when you're trying to reach out to partners or sponsors. If you're trying to reach out to somebody for an event and their brand or their ideals, their values don't actually align with the event that you're pitching them, probably not a good ask, you know? You want to do your own preliminary research and look at the brand or the organization or whatever and see what they funded beforehand and see if your event matches or links with what it is that you're talking about. Like, don't reach out to somebody, cold call them, and like they know nothing, and like there's no connection between your event and what they do or what they fund. I also think about the one pager and the pitch deck. That's super important because that's going to be the easiest way for your idea to spread amongst like an organization or the marketing team or the upper level management administrative team for any organization. a pitch deck is real simple. It's like 5 slides. It's got your idea, how much it costs, why you're doing it, why you think the brand matches, and then like your contact. And same thing with a 1-pager. It's literally 1 page, your description, a loose budget, and then what your needs are, what your ask is, because that's going to be the document that they can just forward along, you know, with your idea. And also it's most likely going to be the person that, it's not going to be the person you're talking to that says yes. Does that make sense? Like the person that's usually after the first initial intro email is going to be the ones who have a little bit more pull than the contact that you originally have. I'm going to check the chat real fast. How early in the planning stage? Okay, so I'd say, honestly, as soon as you have a description and as soon as you've got like an idea of where of what venue you're doing, and then the date. I have a slide in here that's like, it's a lot. Oh wait, actually, I think it's the next slide. Oh no, it's not. Anyways, like 2 slides from now. Basically, I think it's a lot easier to ask for partnership and sponsorship once you have like a real event. Like once there's a date attached, there's a location attached, and you've kind of got an idea of what's going to happen or what you would like to happen. That's when it's a lot easier for people to jump in and be like, okay, yeah, I can get behind this. And it also makes you look a lot more prepared, because then you've got all the things that they could possibly ask or be interested in knowing. You've already got the answers to them, you know? So that makes you look a lot more prepared. I hope that answers your question. And then finally on the shmoney, building relationships. So people work with people that they trust and know and do good work. So when you're creating a relationship or building a relationship with a funder or a grantor or somebody, yeah, like show consistency in the work that you do and the work you provide, and that track record will prove that like the money that's given, the things that are granted are going to be fruitful. Did you add your 1-pager in the initial? I do. I always add the 1-pager. I'll even add a pitch deck and a 1-pager depending on how passionate I am about the idea. Because sometimes pitch decks are also really great for photographs. So if you've already done the event, like having pictures, images, videos, social stuff, like I can say, oh yeah, the Makers and Creators Mixer has an impact on social media of and like literally take screenshots and show the numbers, including attendance and all that kind of stuff. So yes, I would totally include it. It's also way easier for them, again, like on that initial contact email, you might have the wrong email of the person that you should be talking to. So they'll say, this isn't my department, but here's someone who is, and then, hey, so-and-so, the deck or the pit or the 1-pager is attached at the bottom. So this is like requirements for the venue. Again, I'm speaking from the perspective of the Makers and Creators Mixer, and then also just like things I think about. Parking. If people can't park, they're not coming. And if they have to pay to park, consider that too. Because if they're paying to park and they've got to like pay for food and pay for drinks and pay for a ticket, you know, capacity of the venue and of your event. Like if your event is meant for 30 people, pick a venue that fits that. Like you want it to look kind of packed, but also make sure your attendees are comfortable. But if you also need like standing space, a ton of standing space and some sitting space, consider venues that have that or allow for that space. And that also ties into like the cost of the venue, which I have at the bottom. Do they have like food, snacks, kitchens? Can you have a food truck? Where are they going to park? Will the venue allow you to have a food truck or cater or whatever? Mic, sound, AV. Does the DJ or the musician need to bring their own stuff? If so, that might tack on an extra fee from the DJ or the musician because they have to lug around all this extra stuff, including speakers and their own equipment. What's the space layout? Where are people entering? Where are they leaving? Is there a check-in table? Where's that going to be situated at? Is the venue just for you for this event? Or like, are you sharing it with the general public? If that's the case, how do you separate between people that are attending your event versus not? Does that matter to you? And it could or it couldn't. I don't know. So your event, I don't know. Tables and chairs. Does the space already provide that? Do you need to get it dropped off? If so, where is drop off? Where is pickup? Blah, 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 blah. and then the cost of the venue. And then what does that price include? Me personally, this is just me, again, me and my experience. I do not pay for venues, and I won't, because especially for the Makers and Creators Mixer, I'm bringing 300 people to a bar, a restaurant, whatever. I am making them money. So I'm not going to also give them money to then make them more money. Like, that's not going to happen, right? So noted. Just, think about that. Okay, next. So partners and sponsors, here we go. Yeah. So for partners and sponsors, again, it's like easier for people to get on board when it's real. Yeah, it just shows that you've invested the time, that you've done what you needed to, and it makes it easier for people to just jump in, because there's kind of like already a starting point for them to be like, oh yeah, I'm in, I'm down. Both partners and sponsors require logos and mentioning them in marketing materials. So make sure you ask that too. But that's after confirmation of them being a partner, being a sponsor. So this top one is partners. Think. So these are the people that you're hosting the event with. These are the ones that like are giving their time, their money, the resources to help ensure the event occurs. Like they're you plus them are the reason that the event even is happening, right? Your partners in crime, if you will. The sponsors are the ones who are like giving you something, money, in-kind donations, products. They're providing some kind of good or service. And that also looks like materials for like press releases or like social media promotion, stuff like that. That's also considered a sponsor. I keep wanting to click with my thing and it's not going. And then finally, before you like reach out to this partner, this sponsor, do they usually work with, fund, or support events like yours? Don't reach out if they don't have a history of it. But I mean, if you want to take a chance and just say, well, you should, like if you have a very solid reason for why a brand or an organization should fund events like yours, shoot your shot. The worst they can say is no, but just make sure you take note of that, right? Okay, great. So what do you need to be successful? This is referencing like supplies. So you've got your budget laid out, your venue, you know who your partners and your sponsors are. Now you need to know what it will take to even throw this event. So you have to know what your partners and your sponsors are providing. And that's going to help you know what you need, right? What do you have to go find? And then what the venue is providing. Sometimes the sponsors or the partners will provide like volunteers. Like they'll say, hi, we can provide you some bodies to work your event. And like, that's great. So now you don't have to go find a volunteer. Or maybe they're providing like, again, money, food, drinks, or even sometimes like sponsors, like if you got community tool bank, they're giving tables and chairs. Great. Sometimes a venue has tables and chairs, they've got a kitchen or they've got a bar. So you don't need to get bartenders or you don't need to find your own product. And then what, like basically after you know all those things, that helps you go figure out what you have to find. Even same for like the venue, like they'll say, oh, we've got tickets or we've got wristbands, so you guys don't have to worry about, or tokens. So like if we're offering a drink, then people just have like, they've got their own tokens that they use and we don't have to buy our own. But we have to get name tags for the Makers and Creators Mixer, right? Make sense? Beautiful. Marketing. So marketing is before, during, and after, obviously. Before, we always look out like a month ahead of time. So that's going to just help you schedule your own posting style. So like, I know that for me personally, on my personal page, I market or I post at least 3 times a week. Sometimes, most of the time, I post 3 times a week, especially when it has to do with me. Yes. So know that about yourself. Know how regularly you post, and then also know how regularly your sponsor, your partners post. Because that's also like if you're asking them to post, and they should post if they're with you. If they're posting, making sure that they're also tagging everybody that needs to be tagged, mentioned who needs to be mentioned, all that kind of fun stuff. Make sure you're also giving out personal invites, like share a personal invite with the people that you want to see there. And also it's way harder for someone to say no if you invite them personally. Like, so just note that. And also just ensuring that you make the flyers in every size for social. It helps the people that you're sharing this with, because then they can share it on Instagram, on their stories, on Facebook, whatever. It's just way easier when it's already done. Also speaking from a person who gets flyers that are not sized correctly to Instagram to post. Is it important to invite a sponsor to an event that is already scheduled so they can see the purpose, etc.? Oh yeah, that too. Great point. So I had a personal question brought in, or like one of the like direct message ones. If you are trying to get a sponsor or a partner, this is kind of part of the building the relationship. I'm backing up just a little bit. Okay, so part of the building the relationship thing, if you're trying to get a sponsor but they're not like quite ready to work with you, or like maybe they're not in a position, they don't have the budget yet or whatever to support you, invite them to the event anyway, and then they get to see the idea behind it, see it in action, and that actually helps you too, because not only are they an active participant in the thing that you want them to be a part of, but then they can also start to visualize and see how they can fit into it. We Sethu and I were talking before the call that like sometimes people are visual and interactive people, so you just need to put them in a position in which they can see it, experience it, and take it in to like actually have it click for them of why they belong there, right? Or like why you want them involved. So sorry, flashing forward to marketing. So during your event, show folks that the doors are open. Like you'd be surprised how many people pull up to events that because they saw a story an hour ago that said, "Hi, we're at this event and it's open till 9." And it's like, "Oh, I've got time," or like, "I'm in the area, sure, I'll pull up," you know? And then have like at least one trusted person, like being a social, like, I guess, butterfly. Like they're the one that's reposting, commenting, encouraging people to take pictures, have people take pictures with you for throwing the event, and then make sure you're commenting and responding and reposting as many of those things as possible. Because not only will it give people FOMO, because it's like, ah, dang, I wasn't there. But then it's also like that engagement is also going to help you in your account. And I'm saying that from like a social media manager standpoint, like when you're engaging in stories, reposting, commenting, that's going to help get your profile seen by more non-followers, just so you guys know. And then afterwards, so you obviously should probably hire a videographer or a photographer. Well, not obviously, you should hire a photographer, a videographer, because as much as you think you're going to take pictures or videos during your event, you're just not. And it's not your fault. It's a thing we all fall into. But making sure that you get those photographs, those videos afterwards, again, creating that recap post, giving people FOMO, fear of missing out, because they will hate it. They'll be like, "Oh, I'm so upset I missed it." You'll even see comments, "I'm so sad I missed this." I'm sure you are. Come to the next one. So, and then you're going to want to use those photos, those videos to update your pitch deck. And then that's something that you can then send to that sponsor that maybe wasn't ready, attended, blah, blah, blah. And then also feel free to ask like the bar, the venue, like ask them about their sales, like how did the event go for them on their side? They will tell you that and you can use that to your advantage also, especially when you're looking for other venues to reach out to. You can put that number in your pitch deck in your one pager and be like the bar on this night made blank. And that looks real good. Real good. Marketing. So obviously you've got like the days, times, who's involved, sponsors, or the hosts. For me, like location, times, days, what's involved, what's going on, in collaboration with. In hindsight, remember this middle poster was made in 2020 and I knew very little about event hosting, but in hindsight, I would have put in partnership with, that's just me though. And then makers and creators, the logos, chamber, where it is, what's going on, sponsor, register, link in bio, like super simple, right? And then as you see, I've got Instagram post. This is a flyer. So like we printed those out and then hung them up around the community. And then this is for a story. It makes them easy to share, easy to show, easy to print, right? Great. Dink. So these are just like last minute thoughts that I have. I have been talking for so long. last minute things I've just thought about, or like I was thinking about. This is about tickets versus paid versus free tickets. I think it's really up to you at that point. Like if you're trying to make money, that's great. Just be intentional about it and like why you're doing it, and then also what it's going back towards. So for example, if you're like, I am paying for this event out of pocket and I need to reimburse myself, then like sure, that makes sense to me. But just also know, again, if people are paying for tickets, paying for parking, paying for food, paying for drinks, they might not show up. And I honestly am the same way. That's me. But also think about like, would you go to a ticketed event like that? You know, same thing when you're setting your ticket price. Are you paying for a $25 ticket for an event that's going to last 2 hours? Probably not. So just think about your own experience and how you would want to be in attendance to your own event. I would suggest an Eventbrite link either way, whether tickets are paid or not, because that's information that you can collect and use later on. That's going to be the stuff like of emails and information that you can then add to an email list. You can share with future events with, or it's also really great for tracking data for future like iterations of your event, or like for sponsors, partners, future partnerships. You can show the data. It also helps you in the venue get an idea of like how many people may come. I will say with when a free event is free, it's a lot harder to tell the guesstimate because about 35% of people will be no-shows, which is kind of natural. But also Charlotte is a last minute city, so people will also decide to pull up the day of. So sometimes it can be a little harder to get like a gauge on free, but also sometimes we'll pay. Like people will pay for a ticket and still not show up. So do with that information as you will. I think free tickets are more accessible, and I think it's also becoming the norm in Charlotte, like especially for the creative community and our events. So just take that into consideration. The other thing I just thought about is for paid tickets, how far people have to go for your event. So let's say your tickets are paid. If like it's at like 30 minutes, I gotta go somewhere. Sorry, dog. You're gonna have to catch me another day, another time. So just think about that too. And then finally, your event is happening because of you. So let that magic spread everywhere that it could possibly go. Be as selective as you can about the elements that are involved and the people you involve in this event. Like this event is a reflection of you, especially as its organizer, as its host, as whatever. So be very intentional and purposeful behind who you're bringing into this event as like a partner, as a host, as a sponsor, whatever. Be willing to showcase your style and like and ask for help. Have fun and express yourself. And I believe that is it. So yeah, connect with me. That's my email, both of them. This is my Charlotte's Creative email. This is my personal email. I've got my Instagram and then my phone number. So feel free to like reach out or whatever if y'all have questions. And yes, I'm gonna stop. I think I'm gonna stop sharing my, or well, I guess, does anyone have any questions? I'm gonna stop.
I do.
Yeah.
What has been your biggest takeaway from your first Makers and Creators up until your one that you have coming up in October?
True. I think the biggest one has been like, I just need to be a little more selective of like the venues I choose. Cause like sometimes it's way easier to get I've learned a lot with check-in, I guess is where I'm going. Sometimes the layout of a venue isn't very suitable for like a check-in for a makers and creators. Like it backs up the door, it like people get confused of where they're supposed to go. And I think basically every makers has changed check-in because like we're still trying to figure it out. But also it's like about the selection of the venue too. Like, do they have separate entrances? And so if they do, using one entrance specifically for makers and creators, designated tables, having one person at one table, also having like when people are checking in and writing down their names, like is there someone manning that table, because somehow stickers get on tables and the floor, like there's just some uncontrollable things that happen that we didn't know would happen until we're like put in that moment. So I would definitely say check-in is one of the bigger ones of just like learning how people flow and enter a room. And now that I'm also thinking about it, making sure the venue has confirmed AV sound system connections, because I had some issues with that before too, and just doing a better job of sound check and checking their systems before the day of the event. Thank you. Yeah, I told y'all I ramble, so like especially once I get talking, it's bad. It's hard for me to stop. And I just want y'all to know the things that happen up here and hope that they help you. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Makayla, I have a question. I'm sure if anyone else has a question, please pop it in the chat or just, you know, come off mute. You are a collaborator, so you work with a lot of different individuals and organizations as you throw your event. So whether it's makers or it's something else that you're working on, how do you approach collaboration? Like, do you have an idea of what you want your collaborators to help you with, or do you start very openly? Kind of how do you oversee that process, even though it's a collaboration?
Yeah, I think it kind of depends. So like if I'm like, for example, I usually approach people that I know are either doing something or interested in something that I'm interested in trying, or like an event I want to throw. So for example, like for Durag Festival, I hosted an event with Wesley on Sunday at RSVP, and the entire intention was just, I want to throw a party at RSVP and show them that we're awesome and that we can make them money and that they can invite us back anytime and we'll do the same thing. And so it was during Durag Festival, so I'm like, okay, so obviously Wesley is involved, so which obviously means Black Market is involved, which obviously means that like he's got his list of DJs that can perform. And then I already had the connection with RSVP, and I also knew one of the bartenders, and so I said I specifically said I want a special cocktail. They did that, and so like that was really easy to make that connection, that I guess ask. And so, yeah, that was a pretty simple, straightforward event. When it comes time to like makers and creators, I usually go with brand alignment. So for the October 13th one, we're working with Maker's Mark, and they're our sponsor for the event. And I just knew off the bat, like if the event's called Makers and Creators, Maker's Mark, duh. And so but then come to find out too, with more conversation, more research, they also have like this air of collaboration and creativity behind them. Like the only reason that Maker's Mark exists is because this couple said, you know, it's kind of boring up here in the mountains, we want to take on a passion project, so we're going to try whiskey. And it's like, hey, I love that. So also, once I start talking about the different artists that come to the event, the different creators that come to the event, we kind of start coming into this this connective story of passion projects, creativity, and then they also have this underlying what's the word for it? Connection with creatives. So like Leon Parker paints stuff for Maker's Mark. So there's also that. And I'm like, oh yeah, well, he's in the creative community and they're looking to talk to and engage with more creatives. So there's already like, and then we approach as Charlotte is creative, and it kind of just, right? But it wouldn't happen that way unless you kind of, I guess, again, to answer your question more directly, it's thinking about who are the people that are already doing stuff and you're interested in connecting with, and then also who are the people that you want to work with and how does that make sense with them. That was so long.
No, it's helpful. I mean, you know, events take a long time and a lot of thought, and I think your presentation proves that. You know, there's a lot of thought, even though it's a 1 hour event or a 2 hour event, this stuff takes a lot of time and planning and effort and love. So
yeah, I gotta love it.
Yeah. Anyone else? Questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if you seem to have like, I mean, a lot of experience with events and connections with people. I'm just starting out and very new. When you're going to ask people, right, to come to your events or like to partner with you, I don't have like a whole track record to be like, oh, look at my events, look how successful. Are you just selling yourself? Are you just selling like what you imagine the event's gonna bring? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a combo of both. Like people love working with people that make them feel good, you know, like, and that's a weird thing to say, but it's true. People love energy that they can't resist. People love positivity and optimism and excitement. And they also love stuff that like excites them. So when you're very obviously excited about something, that energy is contagious and it makes people want to be like, oh, I can get down with that. I dig that. But it's so like that's selling yourself in that way. But then also selling the idea. Like when something's a good idea, people follow. They're like, cool. They're like, I'm super with that. And I think that makes it also super like easier to kind of talk about and sell your event. I also believe in the power of manifestation, you know, like the more you talk about it, the more it's bound to happen. The more the universe says yes, 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 yes. And that's actually one of the things I think we could do more of. Or like if you have an interaction that goes really well with someone when you're talking about this idea and they're like, oh, I'm super down with that. Say I always like take a second and like walk away and say, thank you, more, please. And that's like an affirmation to the universe. That's like, thank you for this interaction, this engagement, this moment. More, please. I need it more. And so yeah, like just kind of your ability to speak things out and imagine them, write them down, journal about it, like view it, see it happen in your head, and then kind of let your own ability to speak it out to people, to connect with people, talk about it, and then kind of let that slowly but surely gather up into yeah, I guess more opportunities to talk and conversate and build up that repertoire with others. Oh yeah, sorry. The next part of that would be like building your repertoire. Yes, it is like hosting events successfully and then moving on to the next one, but it's also like your repertoire of showing up for others. Like people will show up for you when you show up for them. So it's like if you're talking to someone that works for, I don't know, like the Mint, right? But they see your face at every Mint museum event, bro. They're not going to forget you. They're going to know exactly who you are, you know, know their name. Or like, even if it's like showing up in emails, like that kind of stuff, like it's hard to ignore people that show up. So there's that too. I hope that helps.
I was also going to add kind of what you just said, Makayla. Utilize your resources. So your first Makers and Creators was at Free Range because you worked at Free Range.
Yeah. Oh yeah, facts. In case y'all didn't know, I bartended for like a year while I was in graduate school, and a shorty made a lot of connections. And so if you, I'm not saying that you should bartend to get connections because that's not it, but definitely like if you're looking for fun venues, don't be afraid to walk into restaurants, bars, whatever, and ask for the contact to the event coordinator, or just ask for the event coordinator. One, and like it's boss, because the bartender that you're talking to is like, oh, like, are you somebody? And you're like, I don't know, I could be, but they don't know that. And they're not going to like turn you down. They're gonna be like, oh, sorry. Like, no, you can't have it. No, like they'll either get the event coordinator, they'll get the manager, and then you'll get a card. And then you'll say, yeah, here's kind of my idea. Here's what I'm thinking about. Most likely, because if you're talking about a certain number of people, or if the event is cool, they're gonna be like, money maker. And then they'll be super down and you'll say, yeah, I'll reach out. And then even if you don't reach out, that's okay too. Like sometimes you got to collect a couple bad business cards before you get to the one that you're like, this is the venue I'm looking for. Like I collect all of my business cards. I have them all still, because you never know when you're going to need it or when you might reach out to somebody. So anyways, how do you suggest capturing attendee data for sponsors? Ooh, okay. So I use a Google form for makers and creators because it's free. We collect emails. I also have an entire Google sheet, one for each makers and creators, but then I also have the full one with everybody that said that they wanted their information to be shared. Excel and Google Sheets does a really beautiful thing where you can like make pie charts and show data in really graphic ways. So I will put those into pitch decks and be like, of X number of attendees, I don't know, 200, half of them were visual artists. What do they do? Here's what we talked about. And then I've got like the questions that we talked about, or like direct quotes from people. I know that's like, I feel like some of that information is kind of arbitrary, but like, that's like the hard data points. But then during the event, feel free to ask people like, hey, how are you doing? How's the event going? And like, take note of those comments, because those are quotes you can use in your deck when you're talking to people in your little email. This is what people think about my event. And then also that person that you've got on like social duty, have them like videotape people. Like I had at the last Makers and Creators, I had a photographer and content creator walk around with a tiny mic and ask people like, who are you? And she like just interviewed people. And that was great, because then now also, you not only are you saying like this event is for creatives to network, but then also you're literally showing it in real time, you know? Yes, I hope that helped. How have you measured and determined the impact of the event? Okay, still figuring this one out. I'm not going to lie to you, but I've realized that the impact, especially for makers and creators, comes months after it's over. Like I will get comments, in-person conversations where people are like, Makayla, you have no idea how many people I met from that event, and now I'm working with them. Or like, oh my gosh, Makayla, I'm seeing you right now. I had to tell you, like I was at a live musical performance, and the bass player at this event, the bass player at this event told me that she's only performing that night or like that day because she met the artist at my mixer. And then she also got connected with the band through the mixer. And I was like, that's crazy. That's so great. And then she ended up finding another artist to play for through the event also. So it's like, it sometimes takes a little time to see the impact, but it's true that it'll show itself. When it comes time to like actually, I guess, collecting data, there's a thing, sugar, what's it called? It's like a survey, basically. It's like a survey, basically. It's like it's a ranking system, and it'll give you the RP something of your event. So like basically the closer it is to 100, the better your event is. And it's basically just like a question of, would you recommend this event to somebody else, or would you recommend that someone else attend this event? And then more people that say 5 yes, the better your event is. And I know that sounds really weird, but it's like kind of true, because people aren't going to want to go like recommend, and your attendance won't increase unless they want to return, you know? So that's more of like, I guess, a solid yes. Thank you, Esther. Like the MPS or the MPI, or yeah, but it's that. It just says people like this event and they'll come back. Yes.
That's great. Makayla, I mean, I think just to add on to that, you brought up at the very top of the presentation, like your why, your goal and your why. And it's a follow-up question to include in your survey. Like if your why was to create a space where more people had a networking opportunity in a space that they didn't before, then that's a question. Did you have the opportunity to network with people you didn't before? And it's a direct answer to the question that you were originally kind of, going out to tackle. So this is, I mean, any other last minute questions? I know we're at 7 o'clock and we want to let people go, but any last questions? Makayla, this is really helpful, super thorough, and again kind of teaches us like the value and the worth of an event, really, to think about, like, even if it's a happy hour that somebody's throwing, there's a lot of thought that's gone into that process, and something we can take with us as we create gatherings, whether they're for 8 people or for 300. So thank you, Makayla. For everyone who attended, thank you so much for being here. I'll send a follow-up email with some of the things at the top of the presentation in terms of upcoming events and opportunities. And we will also, the page that you registered, we will update that page with Makayla's deck and also a recording of this presentation if you ever want to come back to it and hear Makayla's beautiful voice. And if you want to share it with friends and your community. So if you're partnering with somebody, like, hey, this is a great talk to listen to, please share it. Please continue to connect with us. And again, thank you all so much for coming. And Makayla, thanks so much for spending the time putting this amazing presentation together.
Thanks for letting me chat, talk with y'all.
So good. You did it. That's a lot of slides. It was very good.
Bro. Well, and again, like I have a tendency to just like ramble. And so like sometimes, and again, like I think we all have like our own ways of like thinking and processing stuff. So like mine is like, it's like a train, you know, it's the creative ADHD train that just, and so as I'm building the presentation, I'm like, oh yeah, I should probably talk about that. Oh yeah, but that kind of connects back to, and then this kind of, and so in my head, in my talking, it kind of makes sense, like when I'm saying it, and I'm like, but you know, we go and
Yeah, the creative process is not linear. So
no, it is not.
You did it right. So again, thank you all so much. Thanks, Makayla. Everyone have a great Thursday. We'll talk soon. Bye.